Okay, if everyone's ready, it's 6 o'clock, so I'm going to hit start now. Good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining us this evening. We've got a few more still coming into the meeting, so I'll give it a few more moments to give people a chance to join us before we make a start. Hello to those of you just joining, just giving it a few more moments rather to let people join us before we get going. All right, just give it a few more moments. Okay, we've still got a few joining. Okay, conscious of time, and we've got a lot we'd like to get through today with you all. So let's make a start. Thank you everybody very much for taking time out of your evening to join us for this webinar session. Really pleased to see so many of you here with us today. I'm going to hand over to the team very shortly, but before I do, just a couple of housekeeping notes really. We're going to run through a presentation with you, which should take around half an hour. And once that's done, we will be handing over and asking for your questions. So if you do have something to ask during the presentation, please use the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. Log all of your questions there, and once the presentation is over, I will be working my way through those and getting through as many as I can during the session so we can answer your questions. Anything we don't get through today, we will be sort of following up with a question and answer on the website, and you'll receive a link to that document tomorrow via Zoom. So before the team present the proposals then tonight, I just want to do a very quick introduction to the team who are here on the call with us today. So my name is Lisa Flounders. I'm from Property House Marketing. We are a communications consultant based in Guildford. I'm joined by John Waterfield from Vivid, Matt O'Grady from Guildford Cathedral, Ian and Sophie from JTP, the architect team, Rupert from McGregor Smith, landscape architects, Sarah from Vale Williams, planning consultancy, and we've also got James Bevis covering transport and traffic and access from iTransport, Clive from RSK covering engineering and drainage, and Ivan as well, who's here to talk about sustainability. So a big team here today to answer your questions. And as you can see from the slide on the screen, we're joined by other consultants working on the project too. I'm now going to hand over to the delivery partners, Vivid and Guildford Cathedral, who are going to start the presentation.
Thank you, Lisa. Good evening, everybody. My name's John Waterfield. I'm the Land and Planning Manager for Vivid Housing Association. Just a quick introduction to Vivid if you don't know who we are. We're one of the largest providers of affordable housing in the south of England, with around 72,000 tenants and customers in around 32,000 homes. We're a not-for-profit housing association, and we give our customers safe and secure homes and provide the foundations for their well-being and their life chances. A large part of what we do is building new homes, and we focus on quality and working in areas with high affordability pressures. While we like to try and ensure that the type of housing we provide is tailored to local plans and meets the needs and aspirations of local communities. Last year, we delivered over 1,000 new homes and we have a very strong focus on regeneration and high quality. And you can see examples of our properties up on the screen here. Guildford is an area that needs more affordable homes, so we're partnering with Guildford Cathedral to deliver a scheme which benefits the whole community. And we're really pleased to be providing 124 homes, including 13 for the church, replacing those in Cathedral Close, and the remaining 111 homes, we will be delivering 40% affordable housing to meet local need. The responses we received when we started consulting with the community in late 2019, early 2020, when we were working on our initial proposals, was really fantastic. We look forward to showing you how your ideas have shaped the design of this scheme. Thank you very much. I'll hand over to Matt.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Matt O'Grady. I'm the Chief Operating Officer at Guildford Cathedral. At the Cathedral, we're incredibly proud of being part of the local community, and we were delighted to see so many of you share your ideas when we last consulted on this scheme. We're very pleased to be working with Vivid, a developer with a great track record for delivering homes for people of all aspirations and needs, and pleased that we can contribute, even indirectly, to providing high quality, affordable new homes in our town. Crucially, this scheme will also protect our heritage. Delivering new homes here will raise vital funds for the future upkeep of the Grade 2 listed cathedral, protecting the endangered heritage of our town's landmark. In addition, the open spaces and green areas you'll hear about later will be enjoyed by the community and will protect the cathedral's entire setting for future generations. Thank you very much. I'll now hand back to Lisa for the rest of the presentation.
Okay, you're now going to hear from JTP, the architect team working on the proposals.
Good evening, everyone. The collective vision for the scheme encompasses a number of key objectives. We want the proposal to be of the highest quality possible, that responds to the setting of Guildford and the cathedral itself, that integrates within the surroundings both physically and culturally, that responds to the climate emergency and provides enhanced open space for everyone, is socially balanced, providing community with affordable housing, and importantly as well, help secure the future of the cathedral through an endowment. So the new community then seeks to enhance the cathedral in a number of ways, helping to attract more visitors to make the cathedral more sustainable, enhancing the physical setting, improving connections, creating new spaces for different activities, addressing environmental considerations, stitching the cathedral into its surroundings, improving the landscape that currently exists, and also the biodiversity as well, and finally respecting the historical significance of the building itself. In terms of the design process, it's really important we understand how the cathedral works, how it was designed, and how the architect's original vision has helped identify 3 key character areas for housing, for new housing, and importantly ensure that the cathedral's legacy is enhanced and secured for the future. So respecting the key approaches towards the cathedral, the viewing corridors and the axes, both north, south and east, west, has helped define these development plots. Sarah.
Thanks, Ian. So just to give a brief recap of the planning process so far and where we've got to with that. Our pre-application discussions actually started with Guildford Borough Council back at the very end of 2019, following the allocation of the site through the local plan earlier in that year in 2019. Through 2020 and into 2021, we've had extensive pre-application discussions with Guildford Borough Council regarding the master plan, design, landscape and other elements of the scheme. And those discussions have included further discussions with technical officers and Historic England. While those discussions are continuing, the team are now starting to work towards the preparation of a full planning application pack, taking into consideration all the feedback that we've received since those pre-application discussions began back in 2019. And that pre-application will be submitted at the end of September. This will allow the council and the relevant consultees to provide more formal feedback on the scheme as a whole and comprehensively compared to the pre-application informal feedback we've received to date. We'll be continuing to engage with both the council and Historic England following the submission of the application, and we'll be dealing with any post-submission matters as the application progresses. I'll hand over to Lisa to give you a bit of an update on where we've got to on community matters.
Thank you, Sarah. Engagement with the community on this project began back in October, November 2019. So some of you may have attended our community planning day, which was hosted in Guildford with residents groups, community stakeholders and the wider public. This event was also supported by an online consultation process via the Give My View platform. After those sessions, we came back again in January 2020 for a report back event at the same venue in Guildford to let the public know how your ideas and suggestions and the themes we discussed had shaped the plans so far. In May of that year, we came back and had meetings online. This was after the pandemic had taken shape. Had meetings online with immediate neighbours to the cathedral, as well as with other community stakeholders and groups. We're now coming back after some time spent planning, bringing the proposals forwards. We're now coming back today to share with you the plans and the proposals and show you how the ideas we've received from you have shaped these proposals and plans. We also met with councillors on Tuesday and heard their comments too. I'll hand back to Sophie and Ian.
Thanks, Lisa. So through the consultation process, a number of recurring key themes were established, and there's 8 of these, so I'll run through these quickly. Firstly, traffic. What we tried to do is really balance the need to provide sufficient parking on the site to avoid congestion and overspill to surrounding areas. We certainly don't want to do that, with encouraging alternative uses to the car in such a sustainable location. So we're providing 1 space per flat as part of the scheme and 2 spaces per house. We're also providing a number of access points around the site, which obviously helps to avoid problems of valid congestion. In terms of connections then, we're actively promoting walking and cycling through new east-west and north-south connections towards the university, the cathedral itself and the town centre especially via Yorkeys Bridge. Roads within the site will be shared surfaces to give reduced vehicle speeds, and also a comprehensive way signage strategy will be implemented and really give the priority to cyclists and pedestrians. In terms of the landscape and sustainability, we'll be achieving at least 20% reduction by utilising energy from renewable sources, such as PVs on the roof. And the landscape provides enhanced spaces to play, walk, explore, and we are retaining the best species of trees that currently exist and planting further trees, native trees, and enhancing the arrival towards the cathedral in every direction. In terms of the nature, similarly, we're improving the biodiversity through establishing new wildlife corridors, roofscape on buildings through brown roofs, supplementing existing hedges and trees with new native species, wildflower meadows rather than just scrub lawns to encourage insects, introducing bird and bat boxes, and the provision of suds and swales and water bodies to attract wildlife too. So a huge increase in biodiversity there. In terms of the cathedral, as John touched on at the outset, to help protect the future of the cathedral, we are providing 13 purposely designed homes for cathedral staff, houses and flats, which help provide an endowment to help fund repairs and improvements for the cathedral, together also with new cathedral gardens and an enhanced setting as well. Affordability was, a recurring theme really, and a real key message for us. So in addition to this, we're providing 44 affordable dwellings, both rented and shared ownership, which amounts to 40% of the market sale and affordable homes across the scheme, making sure we create a really balanced community and also meeting local policy too. In terms of drainage, the surface water runoff issues that we heard from a lot of local neighbours that exist currently will now be actively managed, included by the creation of these suds and swales and water bodies to help avoid the localised flooding issues caused locally by heavy rainfall at the moment. And then finally, local distinctiveness. We've really tried hard to adopt an architectural approach that responds to a lot of the comments that we've had from yourselves, from councillors, from various other bodies, including Historic England and the Council, to try and create and craft a detailed study of the local and wider area, analysing local strategic views to enhance the design and help steer the design, to make sure this new community responds to its setting, enhances the cathedral and town generally, and also nods to the future as well. It's, you know, the kind of feedback was that actually it should be a 21st century scheme for a 21st century.
So this slide here shows the latest master plan, clearly identifying 3 distinct character areas. At the top of the hill, we've got the Eastern Meadows, which frames the eastern approach to the cathedral. We then have the eastern slopes that cascade down the hillside from here, and then the Alresford Road frontage, which introduces defilation along the southern edge. You'll also note the enhanced southern approach to the cathedral, including a new cathedral garden and the existing western approach. The intention has been to maximise open space, retain mature trees and hedges, and locate new buildings in appropriate positions to their context and in relation to the longer views. Rupert will talk through this in the landscape section in more detail. So as mentioned, a key aspect that emerged from our community planning events is the importance of sustainable travel within Guildford and how that sits within kind of wider traffic issues. So how we connect the cathedral into this hillside and within wider Guildford has always been a kind of key part of our strategy. This site, we believe, has the potential to act as a jigsaw piece within a wider movement network, linking the train station with the university, employment areas around the hospital, and the proposed sustainable movement corridors as part of Guildford local plans. Pedestrian and cycle links permeate through the site, stitching what's currently quite an inaccessible, overgrown hillside into the kind of urban fabric of Guildford. Making this more accessible, actively promoting sustainable transport, creating new links and connections for cyclists and pedestrians towards the town centre. Buses and trains are also within easy walking distance for new residents. Access has been a kind of key concern and a key topic for local residents from the outset. And we've tested a range of options throughout the design process, which take into account all the various constraints of the site, including heritage, trees, lots of mature trees, townscape, how this is viewed in long-range views, and highways constraints. And actually, since the last iteration we've shared with you, we've introduced a new access point for the cathedral close dwellings that comes through the car park to the north of the cathedral. With a focus on encouraging sustainable modes of travel, cars are really absorbed by the development, tucked away into the back and into the hillside as much as possible. This not only prevents them intruding visually on this prominent hillside, but also allows this kind of whole development and this landscape to feel really pedestrian first. Parking, as well as Ian's mentioned, is provided at 2 spaces per house and 1 space per apartment. We've also included electric charging points, visitor parking, cycle parking, and the layout has been designed putting cyclists and pedestrians first, whilst also allowing for the technical servicing considerations such as refuse and delivery vehicles. So this produces a development in which the main features are the landscape and the buildings, not the cars. So this master plan here shows you a little hint of how the kind of housing mix is dotted across the site. So the cathedral housing is shown in purple and is located to have a close relationship with the cathedral, but is equally pepper potted throughout the site, as is the affordable housing to ensure a fully integrated and tenure blind community. There is a mix of houses and apartments to all 3 tenures. So sitting at the highest point of the site, the eastern meadow is defined by the more formal housing that sits either side of the space. These are the new cathedral close homes. The homes are visible from the centre of Guildford, hence strategic views were important in the design of the homes, both limiting the height and ensuring an articulated roofscape. The cathedral close housing to the north has its parking tucked behind it, out of sight, with an access from the cathedral car park. Retaining the mature oak tree was a real priority of designing that area with a kind of extensive root protection area that is around that, so we don't damage it now and in the future. And actually creating new pedestrian routes to the cathedral's eastern edge, allowing the cathedral to be accessed from all sides. A number of key principles shape the proposal here, including a formality and grandeur to the homes, calmness and repetition, a richness and a materiality, and also a verticality of detailing to respond to the cathedral, creating gaps in between to also respond to those distant views. And this is an artist's impression from the Eastern Meadow looking north. We've tried to carefully balance the level of glazing to create a responsive elevation, whilst also being careful to avoid overheating and light pollution at night. The dwellings share a simple and robust palette of materials, also employing a subtle variety between the different types of residences across the different character areas. The use of brick as a primary material also echoes the traditional vernacular of Surrey. Then stepping down the hill, we go onto the eastern slopes and the woodland courtyards. The aim of this is that ribbons of red tiled rooftops will lace the hillside, interspersed with slate and green roof in a variety of forms, dissolving into the natural skyline of Guildford. Designs will reflect the craft and artistry of Guildford's vernacular, whilst also acknowledging the unique identity of its setting. A key feature of this area is that the eastern slopes actually see a 10-metre fall in level from north to south. So we've attempted to minimise cut and fill and make the most of this level change by really stepping and kind of embedding these buildings in the hill as much as possible, following community feedback. So actually, we use the level change to accommodate a semi-basement car park, which helps to tuck away the car parking as well, whilst allowing us to provide as much car parking as we need. Designing the apartments as well in a slightly more organic form that steps down that slope, whilst also introducing a new pedestrian route that steps up through the site, as well as kind of vehicular access around the outside there as well. The buildings are broken down to a series of smaller elements, articulated at roof level with a combination of brown and green flat roofs and pitched roofs. Materials are brick in earthy tones with metal roofs to reflect the copper used on the existing cathedral building. Entrances and details in particular are picked out and kind of richly detailed at ground floor level. And the landscaping in front of, within and behind the apartments helps create a really sensitive layering up the slopes as these buildings step up into this landscape. This view looking north shows the articulation across the scheme, the undulating roofscapes, the layering of facades, and balconies and terraces to all homes. And here you can see a kind of entrance to those concealed car parks, which go back into the hillside. Here's another angled view of that. You'll also notice that the stories heights are generally 3 to 4 stories in this part of the site, but they all kind of are embedded into that slope, really stepping up that site. Finally, we move to Alresford Road to the west of the site. We've agreed with officers to retain the hedgerow and propose housing fronting onto the road beyond that, reflecting the grain of the existing semi-detached housing on the southern side of the street. So parking in this character area is tucked between the houses, allowing views through and a new pedestrian link through to a new community orchard nestled on the lower slopes within the existing mature trees to the north. There is a rhythm along the street with houses grouped in pairs like the neighbours opposite. Front doors are accessed on the street to create a sense of community with a mixture of 2- and 3-storey homes, creating a vibrant elevation and a real mixed community. Brick facades or slate roofs are adopted here as they are with the rest of the scheme, so it kind of has a cohesive palette, but each character area has a kind of distinct character. And here is an artist's impression of a close-up view of a pair of those houses, showing the kind of careful composition and detailing. And you can also see in this view, so each house has a front garden, a roof terrace at second floor, and then also a rear garden. I will now hand over to Rupert from McGregor Smith, who will talk us through some of the landscape features.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Sophie. The heritage of the site and the cathedral is central to the landscape approach, and key to that is responding to the Grade 2 star listed building, which sits as that sort of primary object in the landscape. So the landscape strategy really looks at a multi-layered approach that seeks to respect the historic field boundaries, the legacy trees, the former Guildford Park farm, and equally the original vision of the architect of the cathedral, Morph, both in the work that's built, but also in some of the unbuilt plans. So what we've got is a series of slides to take you through some of those elements. If we move on to the next slide. Okay, so one of the first moves is to look at improving that southern processional route up to the cathedral. So that will be repairing and restoring the path network and the steps, replacing the low handrail with a new handrail, sensitive integration of lighting, pedestrian connections east and west, introducing pause points on those steps, because it's obviously a big flight, enriching the grassland in terms of species-rich meadows, and then bringing back through into their a series of yew trees, which is echoing Morph's original vision. Thanks, Sophie. The next slide, when you get to the top of those processional steps, there's will be a new cathedral garden, and within that would be framed by evergreen native hedging, but then delivering a rich palette of planting for the community to enjoy, as well as smaller retreat spaces in that amazing south-facing aspect, which has views out to the south. So equally, individuals can come and use that space in a more reflective way, and that's on that new movement corridor. Thank you, Sophie. So an integral part of the landscape strategy seeks to enhance the biodiversity value. And as was already mentioned, some of those initiatives include enriching the grassland so that it becomes a species-rich grassland. There'll be some positive management of some of the existing trees and hedgerows, as well as the introduction of a richer matrix of biodiversity roofs, providing habitat for invertebrates, as well as introducing bird and bat boxes through those trees. All of that would come under a landscape management plan that would be part of a joined up strategy for the site. Thank you, Sophie. Part of that is also linked into how we manage water on the site. So there are a number of methods being used here. At the upper level, there's green roofs, which will also slow down that water movement through to permeable surfaces. And there are some areas at the lower slopes of on each side of that processional route where there'll be some dew ponds, which is just a very, very shallow grassed profile, and all of that's joined up into, ultimately there will have to be some attenuation tanks so water is managed and we can respond to the demands of climate change. Thank you. So on the eastern meadows, it's already been talked about in terms of looking at protecting the areas around those existing oak trees, but there's some simple moves of a flowing meadow, allowing informal movement through those spaces, through to connecting to the consecrated ground to the east of the cathedral. I think the key thing here has been working with those and around those existing trees. Thank you. Moving on to the eastern slopes, this is just to locate you. There's a slide coming up next, which an artist's impression to give you a feel for the nature of those spaces. So delivering a series of communal garden spaces, allowing people to break out into those, so there's spaces for younger children and toddlers can use those spaces, as well as small community gatherings with views out to the existing woodland. Okay. The western parcel, Alsford Road, just to relocate you there, some of the key elements here is we're looking at a connection through to the north that takes you through to a new community orchard, and then takes you on to the next slide. We'll give you a feel for for the nature of that connection, where you get these glimpsed views up to the cathedral, and then if you move up those steps, you come into where we're looking at local heritage fruit trees, a combination of apples, pears, and within that space between the existing woodland and the new housing. Thank you.
Thanks, Rupert. So in summary, it's probably quite helpful and useful to draw a number of comparables really between the previously refused scheme and this revised proposal. So the site is obviously now allocated. It's for a lower density scheme with a reduction in dwellings, in habitable rooms, and an overall accommodation area. The site area itself has increased, allowing us to provide more landscaping. And of course, really importantly for us, for the cathedral, for the community, the affordable housing offer has increased to 40% with a policy compliant bias towards much needed affordable rented homes. In terms of quality of homes, you know, as well as quality outside, it's really important to provide quality homes inside. And I think given the last 18 months, which has been challenging for all of us, good quality internal environments for homes is really important in terms of levels of daylight, views onto open green space, accessibility to open green space is really, really important. So we're focused on creating accessible, well-lit homes with great views to aid mental well-being as well. And then on sustainability, again, a really key issue. Sustainability in responding to the climate emergency is really at the heart of what we do and underpins these proposals. From the social aspects, creating a new mixed community with affordable housing and clergy homes, to the physical sustainability through new connections, integrating the green and blue infrastructure, and the environmental sustainability by adopting a fabric-first approach to development with PVs, electric charging points, increasing biodiversity net gain, and the buildings responding to orientation and responsible design. So following discussions with the councillors earlier this week, we're currently considering a number of options to provide space heating for the homes and the hot water as well. This may include gas boilers with photovoltaic panels and also the use of air source heat pumps or indeed other emerging technologies. So whilst the houses may be suited to a variety of technologies, the apartments are more complicated and installing air source heat pumps into the apartment building is challenging. So the adopted planning policy requires a reduction in carbon emissions of 20%, and we expect to achieve this or get close to it without the use of renewable technologies. And we're continuing to explore sustainable options and initiatives that will allow for further reductions as well. And then really as a summary of the scheme and proposals before you, there are a wide range of benefits that the scheme brings to the local area and a wider area of Guildford through the provision of much needed affordable housing on a sustainable allocated site, improving the landscape offer for wildlife and people as well, and of course helping to secure the long-term future of the cathedral itself. I'll hand over to, is it Sarah or Lisa here? Sarah? Lisa?
I can take this one. Thanks, Ian. Yes, so just looking ahead then really to where we are in the process. So as you know, we're here now explaining sort of where we are with the plans and the proposals and showing you where we've got to. The application, the planning application is going to be submitted sort of towards the end of this month. And then beyond that, obviously there will be a chance for you to consult more formally on the proposals once that application has gone in. So I think that brings us to the end of the presentation element. So I've got a few questions already coming in, but please do keep them coming, and we'll work through them. We've got time to do so. To kick off then, One question I have received, Sarah, this might be one for you. It's regarding local schools and sort of local schools being oversubscribed. Somebody has asked what additional schools provision is being provided so as not to overburden the system. Sarah, I wonder if you could sort of talk us through what planning requirements are here and whether there's a need for a school here.
Yeah, thanks, Lisa. I can kick that off. So given the size of the proposals, we won't be developing a new school on the site. However, we will be in discussions with Guildford Borough Council following the submission of the application regarding contributions and local requirements for schools, which will be discussed and agreed with the council and then secured through a Section 106 agreement in due course. So that is something that we're expecting further discussions with the council with following the submission of the application, but we're not delivering a school on this site given the scale of it.
Thanks, Sarah. Perhaps this is another one for you as well. So someone has questioned the sort of the timeline for the project really, and mentioned, you know, the submission of the application next week. Is that an appropriate timeline given we're consulting this week?
Yeah, I can pick that up again, Lisa. So in terms of the timeframes, as I said before, we have had some extensive pre-application discussions with the council and also with the community, other stakeholders, Historic England and others. And in order for us to get formal feedback from the local authority and others, we do need to progress to submit a full application. For the scheme to be assessed comprehensively. Things have been looked at in isolation, but the team are needing to pull everything together so we can get that formal feedback from the council and hopefully progress from there.
Thank you. A question here, someone has asked if we're able to share how long we'd expect the total build time to be from start to finish on this project. I don't know if somebody's in a place to answer that.
Yeah, I mean, I can pick that one up. We would expect in the region of about 18 months to build something like this. There are some considerable technical challenges that will require engineering solutions, and it's not straightforward. So around 18 months, probably from start to finish, would be about right.
Thanks, John. A few questions, perhaps we can recap. I know there was a lot of info in the presentation. JTP, perhaps you can help with this one. Someone has asked for a bit of a recap on what the affordable offering actually is and what the mix is there of the tenures.
Yeah, there's 44 affordable homes across the site. So that, ignoring the 13 cathedral homes, it's 40% of the remainder of the scheme is affordable. That is split policy compliant, 70% affordable rents and 30% shared ownership. And whilst I haven't got the exact mix in front of me, what we've really tried to do is make sure it's a socially sustainable mix and community we're providing here. So the private, the affordable and the cathedral homes all have a mixture of apartments and houses. So the scheme provides 1 and 2 bedroom apartments and 3 and 4 bedroom houses. So it's really, you know, tenure blind in terms of the design, inside, outside, and in terms of the mix as well. And we've also, as you've seen in the presentation, tried to integrate all 3 tenures across the wider site as well. So again, you know, a totally tenure blind pepper potted scheme.
Thanks, Ian. And perhaps another one for you as well. Are you able to give us detail on the height of the house overlooking Ridgemount, the 4-storey house you mentioned?
Overlooking Ridgemount, I think that the houses generally, well, the western parcel of the site it consists all of houses, and they range from 2 stories to 3 stories. And the image you can see in front of you here is obviously part 2 and part 3. There are some houses which are all 2 stories. These are set back from the road probably 10 to 12 metres. We've obviously got the existing hedgerow, which is being retained and supplemented, a shared surface drive beyond the front garden of the houses and the house itself. Further to the east, we've got the apartments. They're set further back from the road because we've got the access road in. The existing hedgerow there is much bigger. There's lots of trees within that existing hedgerow. Those trees are all being retained and again supplemented. Then we're introducing a landscape buffer which has suds and swales within it, and then the shared surface access driveway, and then the apartments beyond that. So there are apartments further to the east on the eastern slopes, and they range from 3-storey to 4-storey. So very crudely in terms of heights, if you assume 3 metres per storey, a 3-storey building is about 9 metres, and a 4-storey building is about 12 metres. And most of those apartment buildings have got flat roofs. There are 1 or 2 elements on the end which have pitched roofs, but those top floors are set within the roof space as well, again to try and minimise the overall height of the roofscape. So I hope that answers the question.
Thank you. I'm jumping around here. We've got lots of questions coming in. I'll do my best to group these thematically. Again, this might be a question back to JTP. Can you confirm there will be street lighting as part of the development?
There will be street lighting. That will be shown, or we are showing in conjunction with Gregor Smith, the landscape architects, some proposals within the landscape and public realm offer and submission for the scheme. This will be, as it always is with any planning application and any consent, it will be subject to a planning condition. What we've tried to ensure is that actually our proposals are not only, in terms of lighting, create a safe environment, but also it doesn't detract from the overall setting of the area in terms of light pollution, in terms of the landscaped area as well. So we've tried to make sure that the public lighting will be low level and not kind of intrusive in terms of our local neighbours, in terms of the wildlife, the habitat, and also from the kind of key distant views as well. So it's about kind of low level lighting the kind of the footpaths and ways, and maybe lighting 1 or 2 kind of key local trees as well and key features. So yeah, very sensitive approach to lighting and landscape generally.
Great, thank you. A couple of questions and comments coming in on heating technology. Ivan, I wonder if you can help us with some of these. Somebody has suggested air source heat pumps and has mentioned that another development is using centralised shared heating that allows technology upgrading. Is this something that's being considered or has been considered?
I think it is something that's being considered at the moment, and I think following the councillor's comments on Tuesday, I think we are reconsidering the heating systems to both the houses and the apartments. Just one thing, I know obviously there was a discussion on Tuesday about air source heat pumps, and whilst many people might see it as being the panacea to our problems because they are lower carbon than other technologies, there are issues with air source heat pumps in that they are more efficient with larger properties than smaller properties, and that's because with apartments the percentage of energy requirement for the hot water is usually more than the space heating, and when you get to hot water heating, the efficiency of air source heat pumps go down. So what we need to try and do is just balance what we're going to be proposing, just to get the right balance between emissions reductions and efficiency for our customers. I mean, the other issue with that is that electricity is currently 4.5 times as expensive as gas, and air source heat pumps generally are 2.5 times efficient. So i.e. they put out 2.5 times as much energy as they take in. Now, you don't have to be a mathematician to work out that there is a difference between the energy going out and the cost of the energy. So if we're not careful, whilst air source heat pumps may reduce carbon emissions, they can increase occupants' heating costs. So we just need to be careful with it. And I think we are considering various options at the moment. So it's quite a long-winded answer, actually, but so apologies for that then.
Thanks, Ivan. I've got a few questions coming in about viewpoints and visuals there. Somebody has asked if we're going to be able to use the Guildford Borough Council View City platform, or if we're going to do that at maybe a later stage in the application.
I'll jump in here, Lisa. Yes, is the answer. The View City. The council asked for that a few weeks ago, and we'll be providing that with the planning submission pack. Ian, Sophie, let me know if I'm wrong on that, but it is being prepared and the software will be available.
That's right. Yeah, that's correct.
Great. And has the planning department, are you planning to provide any extra sort of view visuals or drawings as well?
Yeah, I'll jump in there. There's a requirement for a landscape visual assessment, and we've had to go through a process of agreeing viewpoints with Guildford Borough Council as well as Historic England. We're assessing about 30 viewpoints around Guildford, but we're then also preparing montage views of the existing condition and the proposals through year 1, 5 and 10. So that will form part of the planning application. So when that's submitted, it can be reviewed there.
Thanks, Rupert. Just a quick one here. Someone has asked if this presentation will be available afterwards. Just to confirm with you all, our plan is to put a recording of this presentation up on the Vivid website after today. That will be available, I expect, early next week. What I will do is send out a link to everybody attending and make sure you'll know where to find that if you need it afterwards. Moving on to travel and access, then there's lots of comments and questions coming in on this topic. James, I wonder if you can help us out. So somebody has asked, how can we just sort of go over again how many of the units will have vehicle access from the main Cathedral Drive versus those with access to the south of the site?
So 5 of the dwellings will be accessed from the main Cathedral Drive, with the balance access from Alsford Road and Ridgemount.
Okay. And where will building traffic be directed?
Well, the construction traffic will be subject to construction traffic management plan, which will be a condition of the planning application. So that hasn't been determined at this stage, but obviously will need to be controlled carefully in terms of the size, type and timing of deliveries to make sure that acceptable impacts. You know, you wouldn't want to have lots of heavy, large vehicles running through the residential areas, particularly in the peak times.
Sure. And somebody's also asked, why is access not possible via that main Cathedral Road? I mean, we know this was a key concern for local residents. Can you talk us through sort of the restraints there?
Yeah, this is a bit of a long-winded answer, but I'm very happy to cover this. The 2015 scheme that we worked on, the Linden Homes scheme, proposed access from Alsford Road and Ridgemount, and that scheme did fail, but it didn't fail in transport or highways terms. There was no objection to those access arrangements from the county council or from the planning authority. That's why those access arrangements were the starting point for when we started this process a few years ago. That's particularly the case because this scheme generates around about 2/3 of the traffic of the previous scheme. It's a lower traffic generator. But it was clear when we spoke with local residents previously that there was a very strong preference from a number of people to having access through the cathedral ground. So we've carefully tested that option. In highways terms, it's less than desirable to go via the cathedral driveway because of the way that the cathedral access ties in to the chase just to the south of the cathedral roundabout. If there weren't an acceptable alternative, our discussions with the Highway Authority suggest that they probably would accept it, given the low traffic demands and, you know, it's a highly sustainable location. The principal constraint relates to heritage impacts. Nick Doggett, who is, or Dr. Nick Doggett, is leading on the heritage side of things. He's discussed the potential to access the site through the cathedral grounds with Historic England. And it's a firm no from them, I'm afraid, that they would be unable to support any planning application with the main access through the cathedral access road. Similarly, the Cathedral's Fabric Commission, they're an independent church body, but they have a very large say on what is and isn't acceptable in the cathedral grounds. And as I say, they are independent. They will also object to any scheme with a principal access through the cathedral access road. So that's why we've ended up with 5 dwellings, the 5 clergy houses or cathedral staff houses accessed from the cathedral driveway. There's a synergy between those and the cathedral. The remainder of the scheme is going to be accessed in a very similar way to the previous Alresford Road Ridgemount scheme. Sorry, the previous scheme from Alresford Road and Ridgemount. Look, and I know that local residents are not particularly going to like that, and some people will be very concerned by it. What we will do is make sure that the transport work that accompanies the planning application includes a thorough assessment of the access arrangements in terms of safety and in terms of capacity. And of course, that work will be subject to detailed independent scrutiny by Surrey County Council. And if those access arrangements aren't acceptable, then they will object, and in all likelihood, the scheme will be refused planning permission. So I hope that sort of gives an overview of where we were, where we've got to, and where we're going.
Thank you, James. Thanks, guys. I can see lots coming in. I'm sort of trying to jump across between question and answer and chat. So if you can use the Q&A, it does help. But I am looking at both as much as I can here. I've got a question on drainage. I know we touched on this. I think in the presentation quite briefly. Somebody's mentioned problems with flooding at the bottom of Onslow Village. Are we able to avoid or mitigate flooding? What are we doing in drainage terms to help there? Clive, are you able to help with that?
Yeah, I picked up that question, so I did have a chance to think about it before you asked me. But yeah, this is a question about some flooding in Lower Onslow Village after heavy rainfall, apparently due to tree root infestation in the foul sewers. Which resulted in sewage flooding in gardens. The question was whether the new development will make that worse, and the answer is no. The new development will have a separate surface water drainage system which won't connect into the foul sewer. There will be foul flows from the development, but they will be very insignificant compared to the likely flows of surface water that are probably entering the sewers and ending up surcharging the network in Onslow Village. We have consulted with Thames Water, and they've confirmed that our proposals can be accommodated within their sewer infrastructure. They're the public sewer asset managers. I hope that answers the question.
Thanks. Sort of trying to get through as many topics as I can too. How will this scheme tie in with the Sustainable Movement Corridor in Guildford? JTP, are you able to recap on that, please?
It's probably better for me to pick that one up, if that's okay. I'm sorry to step in toes. As part of the work that we've done in discussing matters with Surrey County Council, they asked us to look quite carefully at the Sustainable Movement Corridor. And where we've got to with that is, obviously there's 3 access points onto that Sustainable Movement Corridor, which just runs along the southern boundary of the site along Alresford Road and Ridgemount. Those connections obviously will need to be designed appropriately and will be designed appropriately to accommodate pedestrian and cycle movement to join and leave the Sustainable Movement Corridor. But in addition to that, they are looking for some enhancements. And so what they're looking for is reinforcement of the speed limit through signage and on carriageway roundels. They're looking for some localised footway improvements, and they're also looking for complementary signage. So that will link the Sustainable Movement Corridor with the site, through the site and up to the cathedral.
Thanks, James. Just another admin point I've just seen come in, because I'm conscious of time and there's still questions here. Someone's asked, will we be able to share these questions with the attendees as a document? Yes, we will be doing that. So we'll be taking any questions away that we haven't answered today, preparing responses for them and sharing them afterwards to make sure we're answering everybody's questions there. Question on numbers. Do the 44, just to be clear, do the 44 affordable homes include the 13 cathedral dwellings, or are they excluded?
They're excluded, yes. So there's 13 cathedral dwellings, 44 affordable dwellings, and then the balance is private sale dwellings.
Thank you. Okay, great. And are we able to just have a bit of a recap? Perhaps we can pull the slide back up. Somebody has asked whether we can just be talked through the dwellings closest to Scholars Walk.
Yes, we can get that up now.
Thanks, Sophie, great.
Perhaps this one could be useful. I mean, or we could show the site mix as well.
Perhaps you could just talk us through the thinking there again in that area.
Yeah, so I think what we've tried to do is maintain a real generous distance really between the boundary and that southeastern corner. We've obviously engaged with a number of the residents of Scholars Walk previously on the previous Linden Homes planning application, and know the sensitivities there. So what we try to do is maintain the existing landscape and treescape buffer that exists along the boundary, allow plenty of room for additional landscape in that location too. We've also introduced some suds and swales in that location to capture some of the surface water runoff in that location too. We've then got the footpath, as you can see there. We've got another landscape verge. We've got the shared surface treatment, which allows for very slow car speeds as they're moving up the slope. And then we've got an apartment building beyond that, which is a 3-story building, as Sophie said, set within the slope with a flat roof on that kind of building, on that closest element there. So again, what we try to do, you can see along this entire southern edge, is really set the buildings back quite some distance from the boundary. You've obviously got the existing homes to the south of the image off the drawing. They've got the front gardens and driveways. We've got the road then. We've got the existing hedgerow and trees. We've got then a generous landscape buffer. We've then got a shared surface. We've got some defensible space, and then we've got the buildings themselves. So quite a substantial distance. And what we'll include as part of the planning submission is a number of sections between the proposed buildings across that space, and then showing the existing neighbours around, so people can see quite clearly the relationship between the two, and hopefully everyone will agree that that's a really generous one.
Thank you, Ian. Jumping back to traffic and transport, will there be visitor parking available on the site?
I'm going to defer to JTP on the parking numbers, if that's okay.
Yes, we have allowed for visitor parking. I don't know the exact numbers off the top of my head, but that is part of the planning requirements, and we are compliant with the policy mix, which recommends a certain amount of visitor parking per spaces, which will provide the detail of, and we can even follow up with that detail as well, actually, after this. But yes, the answer is yes.
Thanks, Sophie. How will the estate be managed on completion? Will that fall with Vivid or the Cathedral?
Yes, we won't be creating a management company or anything like that. We will be maintaining the estate using our own direct labour and working to a management plan, and we'll manage our land and the Cathedral will manage theirs.
Thank you. Somebody has asked if there is a chance of there being a model available to give the public a better idea of how the whole development will work. I understand View City, that technology provides sort of a modelling method of doing that. Is that right?
It does. Yeah, it absolutely does. The View City allows views from any distance, any location, and any elevation. So you can be at ground level, eye level, or indeed raised above that. So it's a very intuitive and interactive and helpful device. But we'll certainly take the thought away and give it some consideration.
Of a physical model.
Thanks, Ian. I'm conscious of time. A lot of people asking about viewpoints. As we've said before, we know we've got some of those coming at the moment that the team are working on that will be included in the application. So there will be a chance for people to have a look at those there. Can somebody, Rupert, perhaps one for you, just to finish off really, would you be able to just talk us through again, sort of trees, what's going and what's coming? Are we going to have a game there?
Yes, please. So there have been detailed arboricultural surveys carried out, and the way that's surveyed is individual trees and groups. There will be some tree loss. There will be approximately 60 individual trees lost, and there will be some groups that are removed, and all of that will be very clearly identified on drawings as part of the planning application. But the proposals will be providing a net gain. There's circa 300 trees proposed as part of the proposals, so there will be a net gain in tree cover on the site. But a lot of care has gone into working with the large scale specimen oak trees, in particular in protecting root protection areas, particularly along the Alsford Road. There are some really lovely large specimens along there and in the Eastern Meadows, and protecting that shoulder of woodland that kind of creates that setting to the cathedral from long distance views.
Thank you. I'm conscious of time. Thank you all so much for joining us. As I say, we've still got questions here, so what we're going to do is take those away, prepare responses to those, and make sure that those are provided on the website for you. Thank you everybody for coming. I hope you found the presentation useful and informative. As I say, you'll receive a follow-up email from Zoom in the next couple of days with details of where you can look at the presentation, look at the plans, and submit any comments as well. Thank you very much again for attending. Good evening.
Thanks.